Welcome to the Jira Kanban Boards Unlocked class. We're going to get started in just a moment. I just want to give everyone a chance to join so we can go ahead and get started on that. All right, so I see some people joining in the chat. If you can hear me and all the sound is good and you can see the screen, can you just give me a comment and a thumbs up here so I know that you can hear me? All right, can you guys hear me? Let me chat with you guys. Can you guys hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Okay. I am going to get started then. I see about 16 of you have already joined. So I'll go ahead and dive in. Let's see here. So my name is Cassie. I am the founder of Your Solution Architect, which is an Atlassian partner. And I'm often asked to do the kind of things that I demonstrate here on our classes live for you for free from my clients. So it definitely is a great way to level up your skills. And if you really enjoy these tutorials, please like the video and follow us on YouTube. And I'll show you the YouTube channel at the end of the class. But this session is going to be really in-depth and include a lot of things. So I want to make sure I give us enough time. So I'm going to jump right on into that, okay? So let me go ahead and change screens here. Beautiful. All right, so you should be viewing my Kanban board, which I am actually going to use in order to teach you about Kanban boards. How clever, right? So I've put together this board for you, and essentially we're going to walk through each of these, tickets or cards that you see here and learn a little bit about Kanban, and then learn about how we can use Jira to kind of practice these Kanban principles. So let's dive into this first ticket. All right, we're going to put this in progress. Love it. All right, so just in case you don't know, Kanban principles significantly impact Agile, really by enhancing workflow management and promoting that continuous improvement. Therefore, you do not need to be a fully Agile shop to utilize Kanban principles. And I feel like this is largely misunderstood. People feel like they can't adopt using Kanban principles because they're not Agile. And it's really just kind of like an enhancer to the Agile process. So the principles of Kanban are: 1, visualize your work. So you use a board, and that board in traditional Kanban principles can literally be anything. It can be a whiteboard with sticky notes. It could be a Jira board. But really, you just need to be able to represent the work items and their process and progress through different stages. 2, you need to be able to limit work in progress. That's usually referred to as a WIP limit. That means you set a limit of the number of tasks that you have that are able to progress at any one time. This helps you improve your focus and your efficiency. So you're working until that thing is completed and then moving on to the next thing, instead of working a little bit on a lot of things but not ever delivering anything. So this concept number 2 is really important. 3 is manage the flow. Basically, you want to monitor and optimize the flow of work through the system to identify any bottlenecks. And what does bottleneck mean? It just means if there is a certain step in your flow where things seem to get stuck and take a long time to progress forward, you want to figure out why. And using Kanban principles helps you actually identify these bottlenecks. And then ultimately, when you identify the bottleneck, you can usually solve it and improve your delivery time. 4, basically you want to make your process and policies explicit. So you want to make them clearly defined and communicate the rules and process that govern how your work is done. And your team needs to kind of agree to those rules. And then 5, you implement a feedback loop. So these are just regular reviews and retrospectives where you gather your feedback and see where you can and can't improve as a team so that you can continually improve your processes. And then 6 is you're going to improve your collaborating, and you're going to evolve by experimenting with change. So it really encourages a culture of experimentation and collaboration to find a better way of working. But overall, if you integrate Kanban principles into agile practices, you can lead to improving your efficiency, better team collaboration, and have a more responsive approach to changing requirements. So I'm not going to be a Kanban or agile cheerleader this entire time. Really, I just wanted to show you how these Jira Kanban boards help you adhere to Kanban principles, because some of the features that we have are really going to impact, our Kanban principles and our board. And so they kind of connect. So what are the elements of a Kanban board? Let's dive in, because these elements are going to be what we see here in our Jira Kanban board. So the 5 key elements that Kanban, states is that you should have visual signals. So basically cards or tickets. And I always say you want 1 item per card. So you don't want many work items represented in 1 ticket or card. 2, you have columns. Those columns specify activity that together make a workflow. Workflow, we know that word in Jira for sure. 3, commitment point. That is the moment where the team picks up an item of work, usually maybe out of a backlog or out of the list of items, and select it to be worked on. So sometimes you have a status in Jira called selected for development. That might be your commitment point. 4, you have a delivery point. The delivery point is the end of the team's workflow. That usually means that item of work is being handed off to the customer or to the manager, and that you are done with that work. I want to cover lead time here too, because lead time is basically the amount of time it takes for the work item to move from the commitment point to the delivery point. You'll often hear lead time talked about when we refer to Kanban practices and Kanban boards. 5, we've already kind of mentioned this in our Kanban principles, which is that work in progress. So our board basically needs to have a way to create this work in progress limit and limit the number of work items or cards in any column at one time. All right. Do we have any questions about Kanban or Kanban boards? You could pop them here in the chat and I'll take a look and I'll try to answer them the best that I can as we move forward. But now we're going to dive into, okay, what are the visual signs? What are the columns? What are the commitment points? What's the delivery point? How does that all these items actually equate in our Jira board, our Jira Kanban board? And the cool thing about Kanban is you can actually kind of move things through your board if you don't want to go in and hit the status. All right, so I'm going to move this one over here just to get out of our way. So the first element I really want to talk about that equates and translates over from Kanban principles into our Kanban board and how it's configured are cards. Yes, not all columns, Lindsay. So Lindsay put in the chat, setting work in progress limits, which we're going to talk about on number 6. Do you recommend setting limits on all columns? Actually, no. So that's really up to your team. I don't think you want to limit on all columns, but basically the columns that you would consider in flight or being worked on, like your in progress kind of columns, those are going to be the ones where you probably have WIP limits on, because you don't want too many people working on too many things. Instead, you want them concentrating on one thing until it's completed. I hope that makes sense. So let's look at cards. So what are cards? Okay, inside of Jira, this is my definition of cards, okay? By creating work types in your project, such as stories or tasks, you actually end up inadvertently creating a visual Kanban card. These will help your team understand the status of the work item, the history of your work item, and what it takes to get that work item done, right? You also can have card color. Remember, Kanban principle, make the work visual. So you have the card, now you have card colors, and you can completely start organizing your cards by distinct colors. So for example, if you have an epic, you could have that card color a different color. And I'm going to show you how to do all these things in just a second. I'll demo cards and how we can edit and change the settings in our Jira cards to kind of highlight these items. We also have the card layout. What do I mean by layout? That's basically the fields that show when you first look at the card. You'll notice my layout leaves a lot to be desired. I don't have the ticket assigned, so it says unassigned. I have a label on my ticket, which is the Kanban label, and I can see the ticket number. I can also see some things over here, like how long it's been in the column and its priority. And if I did have it assigned, I would also see my picture there. So this is what I mean by the card layout, okay? So let's take a look at how we can change the layout of these cards to be more beneficial for our team. Because essentially we want this card at first glance to have all the data that we need to get going and get started without having to click into the ticket. So to change the settings in your Kanban board, you're going to come up to these three little dots by the Kanban board name. I don't know if you can actually see that. Looks like I might be a little too zoomed in. Oh, it's okay. Do you see it? Tell me you see it right here, the three little dots. And then we're going to go to board settings. And now we're going to pull up all the board settings that we have here. So we talked about layout, right? The layout of the card. So that's really important because that language helps you find where those settings might live. So we're talking about the card layout. You're going to click into card layout. And then this is where you're going to be able to specify what fields you do and don't see here on your Kanban card, okay? This applies to all board types, to be fair. So it's not just Kanban boards, but I do have a Scrum board session next week, same day, same time. So next Wednesday at 9. If you're interested in getting to know more about the Scrum boards and their processes, you'll notice that a lot of these tiny configurations overlap, like card layout. So you want to choose your three fields that matter. As I showed you on our card preview, things like priority. Sure. I have a very low voice, but usually people don't have a problem hearing me. Earlier I sound checked. I'm not sure how to make the volume any higher. Let me see. Sorry, someone popped in the chat that they can't hear. My mic volume is all the way up, and I'm looking when I'm speaking at, I'm pretty much in the middle here, so I'm not sure what else I can really do for sound to be louder. I apologize. Hopefully you can hear me well enough. So in the three, you only get 3 fields, so you gotta make it count, right? And we already saw that in the Kanban board, if we look at it really quick, we automatically see the priority and we automatically see the assignee and how many days it's in the column. So usually I don't make those my 3 special fields. Instead, I use those for things that matter more. So I would remove the assignee field here and put something else that matters to you. I don't have a lot of things created in this project for this demo, but you could put the description, and I want to show you what that looks like if I put the description, because it's going to try to force all my description into that tiny card. So you see how it makes the cards really big? And I wanted to demo that on purpose because you don't also want the cards to kind of take up the entire screen, okay? So you definitely want to take a look at that for sure. So let's go back and we can remove description. I put labels because they're really important to me. I want to make sure, because this board is filtered by labels, that I had showed labels, but you could potentially put the, let's see, maybe you have a component field. I don't think I'm using them on these cards, but components might be something that's really important to you. So you could change it, and then once you change it, you refresh. You can see there that, you know, the column or the board cards look different because I'm not using that, you know, component field, but if I were, they would show up. So let's see if I could come in here. I'm not even sure if component is on the screen. We can maybe create a component really quick. Create. You're gonna let me, oh, it wants me to do the new components. Well, for the sake of this class, I'm not gonna dive into that because it's gonna take too long. So I don't wanna do the new component type. But yeah, so add the fields that are valuable to you on your card. So your card has the things that they need. Now let's talk about other things on there. So let me go back to word settings. You can also turn on or off that days in column count ticker. I like it on, a lot of people like it on. So you can leave that on or turn it off based on your preference on the card layout screen. And then you can change the card color. So you can actually assign colors to your cards to help you identify them really quickly. Some ways I've seen this done is usually by work type or priority. Those are the more common. Assignee, you can filter by assignee on a quick filter at the top, so I don't usually use it like that. Queries, you could create your own JQL query and say maybe you're looking for a specific component to turn it a color, or you're looking for a specific label to turn it a specific color. You could totally do that here by adding a color, selecting your color, and I love purple, so we can make it purple. So we could say labels equals Kanban. Cool. We can add that color, right? So now, because all of my tickets have the Kanban label, they should, when I refresh this, be purple. See on the little side, they're purple now on the side of the card. Very cute, very nice. So you can easily call that out. Another good way to use this is if you have a blocked ticket. Instead of creating a blocked column, instead create a color to represent something that's blocked and leave your card that's blocked in the in progress kind of column. That way you're not taking it out of in progress and kind of putting it over to the side. Because remember, if you have a WIP limit on that column, by moving the ticket out of that column, you're now allowing something else to be worked on when really you guys should be focusing on unblocking that card. I hope that makes sense. So you could also do a query for status equals blocked and change that maybe red so that your team can see that really easily. If you're no longer wanting this color or you want to edit it, you just click the three little dots and you can delete or edit it. No problem. So you can also do it by work type, which is pretty cool. I only have one work type, so only one populated, but if you had several, all your work types will populate. You can click and you can change the color based on your preference. So pretty cool. All right, so let's move on. I think I covered all the things. Let's just double check. Yep, so we have card layout, card color. We are good to go. We can drag and drop this into done. Now let's talk a little bit more about the board itself and how did we get these specific cards to pull into here and how do we fine tune the data that we see on the board. All right, so projects can have multiple boards which means you can have multiple board filters. And that allows you to decide exactly what work items you want to show on this board versus maybe another board. So I'll actually show you that this project, Jira Boards Unlocked, which is the class, has a Kanban board and a Scrum board. What you see on my Scrum board is completely different than what you see on my Kanban board. And that's because of the board filter. That filter allows you to say exactly what you want to see. But remember, the biggest thing as a Jira admin, people come and tell me when it's in relation to boards is, hey, so-and-so shared this board with me, but I can't see anything. The board doesn't seem to work. That's probably because the board filter itself is not shared with the user, so they don't have visibility of the board. Weird design, but that is how it is. So if you share a board out and someone can't see it, you're gonna check the board filter, and I'll show you exactly how to do that in just a second. But I wanna go over a couple extra elements really fast, and then we'll dive in how to configure them. You also, in boards, can have something called sub-filters. So this happens a lot to me. A user might come to me and say, hey, I set up a board, but for some reason this one ticket isn't showing, and it should show. Usually I'll dive in and there's some weird sub-filter, which reduces that main filter's showable items, essentially. So you can further reduce what is shown on your board without changing all the backlog or all like going into the main board filter and changing everything. So it's really helpful. You can just omit maybe a singular ticket if you have an exception to a rule or something. You also have something called quick filters. Quick filters are filters that you can show on the face of the board, so not in the board settings anymore. As the users are using the board, you can have these filters at the top that allow your users to quickly toggle and show only certain work that's important to them. Remember, I mentioned we could use a quick filter to look at the assignee. So we can filter by only tickets with me as an assignee, and we can filter by tickets that are only unassigned, which is really cool. So these are what are quick filters. You can actually see that there are some created out of the box for you. If you don't like them hidden here, you can click this toggle and it'll actually put them down here. So these are quick filters that are extremely useful to your users. So let's take a look at board filters in general, those sub-filters, and then how we create these quick filters. Pretty much all the magic is still gonna happen here in the board settings. So you're gonna click those three dots and click board settings. Then you're gonna come here and you're just gonna kind of take a look. This is the hardest part because there's no like filter pane. So the filters are actually hidden in the details. So this is where you can change the board name if you're not happy with it. You can actually move this board from one project to another if you want. If it was created here, but you've created a new project, you can actually reassign it to a different project, no problem. And then, like we're talking about, you can come in and take a look at the board filter. So let's look at this filter first. So we can see the name of the filter. We can see the filter query, but we can't see the permissions unless we actually click this little filter details. This allows you to be able to see more about the permissions. So you can click view permissions. It's going to take you right to the permissions of the project itself. Sorry. And you'll see here that it's basically this filter has been shared with anyone who has access to this space or project, if you're speaking in the old terms. So if we want to look at this filter or edit this filter, we're just going to click edit filter query, and that's going to pop open that JQL kind of area. If you're a pro, you can switch to JQL. If you're not a pro, you can kind of use the selectables. Truth be told, I just jump into JQL. I'm not very good at using the selectables because they didn't exist when I learned Jira. So I was, sink or swim, forced to learn JQL. So I can look and I can actually change this filter to, exclude this label, and then it would actually show all the things in the other board as well if I was to remove the label. But the label is how I'm filtering and only showing these items. So I'll show you if I actually remove this statement and I hit search, you'll see the cards for the Scrum lesson. So we don't want that on our Kanban lesson board. So we're gonna add that back, search. And then once you change it, if it's truly a change as you saw, let me take it away again. So I kind of went fast. You have to hit search. And once you do that, you're gonna hit save filter and save your change, okay? No problem. Now, if you want to change who this filter is shared with instead of the actual JQL, you're gonna come into filter details and you're gonna take a look at the filter details. You'll see that anybody that has access to these spaces in these roles currently have permission. So you can actually sit here and hit edit, and you can add groups or people. Just make sure you hit the add button, otherwise you'll populate the group. So let's just put a group and hit save. It won't save. You have to use this little add. It's kind of like a gotcha that some newbies usually miss. If you hit add, it adds it down here. Essentially, if it's not down here, it hasn't happened, okay? So then you just hit save once you have it how you want it. That's also where you can change the name to the filter. Same thing, you can change the name and hit save. So pretty cool. So that's the main board filter, and that is how this board actually knows what work should show here for you. Now, if you scroll down a little bit further and you kind of get past the permissions, you'll notice the board subfilters. So this fixed version and unreleased versions, and fixed version is empty, is a default setting that is put on all boards when you create them new. Sometimes this gets people. 9 times out of 10, if someone comes to me and something isn't showing on the board, it's because they have a fixed version on that ticket that has been released, okay? So if you're setting up a new board and this is not important to you, this is a quick way to not get a Jira ticket later about it. Come in and just erase it. It is default populated here. So if I were to put a fixed version that I've released already on a ticket by mistake, then that card is like no longer going to show on my board. It's lost in Jira cyberspace. So just food for thought. Make sure that if you want this to occur, it's here. If you don't, make sure to remove that. So in my case, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be using this board. Lastly, on the same screen, completed work items. How long do you want them to stay on your board? And what they mean by stay on your board is they are talking about in that last done, whatever your last column to the right is, whatever you're going to call that, this setting is saying how long do these cards stay here, okay? I have it for 2 weeks. You can create and show them all for eternity, which is to me very cluttery, or 1 week or 4 weeks. So you can really customize that to your needs. Pretty awesome. All right, so that is a bit about filters and subfilters and quick filter. Oh, I didn't show you quick filters. See, this is why I have cards. All right, so quick filters are the only filter related items that are not on the detail panel. They're actually down here in this layout section. Because remember, this is forward facing. It's not really about how like the back end magic is configured. Quick filters are on the front line facing your team. So this is where you would actually edit your quick filters and add work that's like valuable to display to your team. My recommendation is to try to leverage this current user attribute that you have in JQL to create dynamic quick filters. And what I mean by that is, if you want a quick filter that shows this particular assignee their work that is of a certain component or something, you're going to use that current user as assignee equals current user, and component equals, and you're going to put the component that you're trying to show. Or maybe you want to do it by fixed version. You could totally do that as well. Usually people, when they're looking for their work, they don't want to see everyone's work in that fixed version. They usually want to see work that only pertains to them, that they're involved in. So if that is the case for your team, you definitely want to leverage that current user JQL. If you haven't discovered it yet, it is very powerful and could be very valuable. So to create a quick filter, you just hit create a quick filter. You're going to name it. You're going to pop your JQL there, and you can give it a description and hit create. And that's going to show it right where I showed you on your board here, under here. And again, if you don't want it to show there and you don't want this landscape space, or you have too many quick filters, you can always just hide them and get back some space on your board. I know there's a lot going on these boards as it is, and we'll get to those in a little bit because that's also customizable. So for me, I don't like a lot of noise. I already feel like with the side panel changes and with the top panel, we have a lot of noise going on. All right, so you can definitely minimize that by hiding your quick filters. All right, so we went ahead and we talked about our boards, subfilters, and quick filters. So let's dive into our columns. What are columns in Jira? Columns in Jira on the board represent those different stages in your workflow of that work type or issue. They help you visualize the progress of, say, a task from start to finish, and each column typically corresponds with a specific status or groups similar statuses in the workflow together. Teams can customize these columns to fit their specific processes and allow for better tracking and management of work items. Pro tip, you do not want a column for every status. And the reason for that is you only have so much space. So if I have too many columns, because these are our columns, you'll actually end up with a scroll bar at the bottom. And you'll have to scroll to the right. I am a big, cheerleader that we do not death scroll. We don't death scroll to the right. We don't death scroll up or down. We don't death scroll. So we want to try to reduce the number of columns we have to fit the screen. So if you're adding columns and you hit save and you go back and you have that little dreaded scroll bar, you might need to come back to the drawing board and figure out how you can consolidate a little bit more. So how do we adjust these columns? We actually can come in here to the settings for the board. We're going to go to layout, because that's forward facing and we can see it, and go to columns. Super easy. Sometimes you'll have a bunch of unmapped statuses here, and that's okay. You don't always have to have a status mapped. I've never really had a use case where I don't have a mapped status, truthfully. But say you're kind of sharing this project and the other team had a status that you really need because, they have one little extra step in their process that your team on this board don't use. You might have a status that is unmapped. That's fine, it happens. So you can add and remove and edit how many columns you have, okay? So in these columns, you can rename them. So you can call this, the backlog, and I'll just type the same thing and you can hit save. This is where you can put your work in progress limits as well, those WIP limits. So we're kind of solving the other card, I'll go back to it in a few minutes, of where do we put our WIP limits. We put them right here in our column itself, and we say you can have 1 ticket or 2 work items, whatever you prefer in your different columns. Usually, like I said, you might have a WIP limit, a work in progress limit on how many items you can select for development at a particular time. so people don't feel overwhelmed. Then you might have how many you can move into in progress at a time based on how many people are on your team. It's pretty cool. So I have, and it's showing me how many items I currently have in these columns. So right now I have 2 work items. So it kind of gives me a cheat code to how many. In addition, you also have the ability to set the resolution when it hits a column. This is important because this resolution field I call the magical unicorn field that essentially tells Jira that the ticket is completed. The status itself doesn't tell Jira or the reports inside of your project that the work item is actually completed. It's that magic resolution field. Resolutions are global in your environment, so definitely want to take a look at what resolutions are available to your project. You can also set the resolution in your workflow, or you can have a transition screen when someone's moving something to done pop up and ask what the resolution is, and they can select the appropriate one. Sometimes you just don't need all that sophistication. You can just set the resolution right here on the ticket when it's moved into this column. That's very important because you basically don't want tickets in a done status that don't have a resolution for reporting purposes inside of Jira. Also, it's not going to fall off your board unless it's resolved. So you can auto set it in order to do that as well. So pretty cool. All right, so let's look at our card and see what other things we have to cover. Oh, did I not go back to the word? Okay. So that's that work in progress limit. I'll just go over again what that is. That is the limit you place on those columns I just showed you that allow fewer items to be worked on at a time. The idea is that the fewer items being worked on, the faster those selected items get done. And that's really the secret sauce to Kanban, truthfully. So how do you decide what the work in progress limit should be? The advice from the Kanban Association is to take the number of people that work on each column or stage in your workflow and multiply that by 2. That is how many work items should then be in the column. So if we had 5 people who work on the items in the in progress column, we'd multiply that by 2, and then we'd have the constraint of 10. So in Jira, they actually call these constraints. So in the column, you'll notice column constraints, and you can constrain by issue count, an issue count excluding subtasks or none. So right now I have column constraints on, that's why I saw it there. But if you don't see that, you just have to turn it on. So simple, easy peasy. All right, so I think that covers our columns. Do we have any question about any of the stuff that we've covered so far? Because we're about to wrap it up. We're doing pretty good on time. So I want to make sure you have a chance to ask your questions before we dive into swim lanes. Give you guys a moment. There's a little bit of a delay. All right. Well, no news is good news. That means you must be following along. Hopefully the delay isn't too bad. All right. So we have here the next card, which is called swim lanes. The swim lanes are how Jira allows you to create a horizontal row or groupings of work inside your columns on your Kanban board. This allows you to categorize and organize your issues by things maybe such as which team is working on these items. The aim really is to improve your visibility. Remember, visualize your work is like a big piece of Kanban principles. So let's take a look at the swim lanes and how we can configure those in the board settings. So in the board settings, we're going to come into layout because remember it's forward facing. We can see it. It's probably hiding here in our layout section. We're going to click swim lanes. And now you can select a few different ways. Right now I have query, so that means I can do it by JQL, or you can do it by, say you have multiple spaces, work pulling in to this one board, which I would recommend using probably a Jira plan instead for that kind of work, but you could technically do that. You could group the work horizontally by, assignee or epics. Put its epic, one epic and all its children in one column, or you could do it by query. So here I have a query about the priority being the highest. So it's going to group things by priority. So you can actually take a look at that. And right now I don't have different priorities, so you'll see everything's kind of in the same. Let's see if I can kind of change some priorities around here really quick. And then maybe we can group them by that, and you can see that we end up with kind of a different configuration. Layout, go to our swim lanes. So we can actually delete this. We could do query. Actually, maybe we can do it by assignee. Unassigned work item, show below or above. Okay, so let's show below. I just want to show you what it looks like when we have it on, because I don't have enough data in here to really give you a good example. Oh, couldn't load some things on my board. What is going on, Jira? It's probably because everything's in done, and maybe should have done it when it wasn't in done. Let's see if I can move back to backlog. Let's move everything back really quick. See, I literally don't have too many rules going on in this project. All right, so let's try assigning some of these to me. I'll assign this one to Christy. Can she be assigned in here? Maybe not. Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm filtering right now on my work items and these. Okay, cool. So let's actually do that by assignee. It should be doing it. I'm not sure why it's not. Go to board. Something is happening with my board. Any suggestions? Any pros in the room? What's going on with my board here? Sorry, something's gone wrong. We couldn't load some of your board data. Well, what it should be doing is it should be creating like a horizontal line, and it should be grouping all of Christie's tickets above that horizontal line and all of mine below it. That's being a little weird. And I'm not sure if it's a glitch right now on their side, or if I've done something. But I don't see what I would have done. Layout, swim lanes. My swim lanes are done correctly. Maybe just none. Try to shake it loose. See, it's still saying something couldn't load. So I don't know what's going on. I think it's just kind of something sluggish on the Jira side. But essentially, you'll get a horizontal line going across your board. So no matter which column it's in, it'll still be grouped together. So all of Christie's stuff would kind of show at the top in that column, and then all of mine, and then anything unassigned would show below. And it would group the work together based on that. I'm really sad I can't demo that for you, because it's really awesome when you see it visually. Okay, so last but not least, while we have a little bit of time left, I want to go into how we can customize just how this tab section works. It's really, really easy. You can actually just come in, and wherever you don't want to see something, you can just kind of hover until you see the 3 dots and click remove. Or you can move it to the left, or move it to the right, or you can remove. Then if you've removed something and you want it back, you can come to this little plus sign and you can grab it and hit the blue button, add to navigation, and boom, you have it back. So no problem, you can totally do that and add it back. I wanted to also talk about one other thing. In a Kanban board, you still have this timeline view. Technically, that's not Kanban. So usually if I have a Kanban team, I kind of remove the timeline view. And I clean it up as much as possible and just like get everything that my team aren't really using. So there's also a list view. I think I've renamed a list view here. If you see the list view, please note that this list view does not actually assume your board filter. So sometimes you might see cards that aren't supposed to be there because it might not take on the filter. You see, my filter said that we only wanted to see tickets with the label Kanban, but I have a Scrum ticket sneaking in here. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that. So usually I rename this and indicate that in the name because it's very confusing and I get a lot of tickets about that specific issue. Like, how come the list shows tickets that shouldn't be there, but my Kanban board looks right? And it's simply because for some reason this list does not get the board filter. So don't think it's you. It's them. It's a them problem. It's not you. Or you could just completely hide it and get away from it completely. So you can come in and customize however you want as well. You can also come in and group things this way. And I actually created kind of like the swim lanes for us, the swim lanes for us. And then you can do a lot of other things, like take a look at your cover. Like you can have a cover image on the back of your Kanban board so you can see a cute little picture every time you log on to open up your board. You can add an image, and I forget where you actually add the image. I think it might be in maybe not. I thought it was in here somewhere. I might be wrong, but it's really cute. You can actually make them look so cute now and put images back here, which is really cool. So that's what that's referring to. You have a lot of really cool options, like, showing certain things, filtering by certain things, showing your linked work items, and it just lets you quickly select that. And this is just going to show this for this user and not permanently for the board. So each user can kind of come in here and quickly make a little change to how they see things. So even if the board didn't have that configured, the user can come in and group things as well, which is pretty cool. But the grouping is the same concept of those swim lanes. So that's what the swim lanes basically look like, which is pretty cool. So then you can kind of carry them and find them. By assignee is great if you don't have a lot of people on your team, but again, there's like so many other ways to see by assignee. So, well, that is all I have for you today. We made amazing time. I will hang on, and if you have any other questions, I can answer them, and I'd be happy to kind of help you with that. So just let me know in the chat if you have any board related mysteries. I might be able to help you solve them. And again, if you liked this tutorial, please go ahead and upvote this on YouTube, our YouTube channel. You can follow us as Your Jira Guide and subscribe. So anytime we have a live, if you've missed the listing on the online learning community, you can get that alert by following the actual channel itself, which is pretty cool. All right. I don't see anything in the chat, and the numbers are slowly dropping. People are bailing. I will just hang tight, making sure that no one needs me to answer anything. But otherwise, we are all set for today. Make sure that if you're interested in the Scrum lesson, you join that. That's posted for next week, so just go ahead and RSVP to that or follow the channel to get the update on when that will be. It should be at 9 a.m. next Wednesday. All right, well, I will go ahead and end this stream. Don't see anybody chatting, so take care and have a good day.